everybody will have to carry flood insurance by 2027. And no, it's not clickbait. Hello everyone, Antonio back once again. Today I'm doing a video that actually touches home. If you gathered from the title and from the intro, you're probably saying, wait, this has to be fake, right? This has to be a clickbait video, or this has to be one of those, it may be coming. Nope, it's already here. So, and what I mean by it's already hit home, the home I live in, it's insured by Citizens. So Citizens Insurance is who I have a policy with on my home, and they have already started to roll out. So this whole video is going to be pretty much about Citizens. So Citizens Insurance, for you guys that are wondering what it is, it's a state-backed insurance company. It's not private. Again, it's backed by the state, and it was really created because there was a lot of insurance companies that kept backing out, leaving people hanging, and people just didn't have an option to go with an insurance. And if you know anything about purchasing a home, you know that if you get a loan, you have no choice. You must have an insurance policy, just like a car. So Citizens was created to pretty much allow everybody to be able to get insured. Now, Citizens, contrary to what a lot of people think, they don't want to grow. They don't want more policies. On the contrary, they want to really not have to be there and just have private, companies be able to carry everybody in the insurance policies. In Citizens trying to move more to that direction and try to, oh, look at this view, guys. Check that out. So I'm still in Siesta Key today. I actually came a little bit more south and gonna try some fishing here. But what I was saying is they're trying to shrink, they're trying to get smaller, but they have already started to roll out so by 2027, every single Citizens policyholder will need a flood policy, regardless of where you live. If you live in an area that's not even a flood zone or a higher flood zone rating, doesn't matter. You're going to have a flood policy. One thing they're trying to do is try to obviously mitigate risk as well. And this is kind of a double-edged sword. So if everybody's forced to have a policy with Citizens, obviously, the people that have only flood policies with Citizens, their cost is going to come down quite a bit. So I've been talking to the insurance agent I work with, and yeah, we've brainstormed, ran some scenarios, and she believes that if everybody's forced to have a policy, it's going to bring the cost down. So it's not going to be like before. I know in other videos I've mentioned, and you've probably heard with people talking, flood policies are very expensive. And yes, that is true. But if everybody's made to carry the policy, if you're forced to carry the policy, I can't imagine the rate to be that high. So it's going to suck because a lot of people that are not in the flood zone, we're used to typically when you go buy a home as a buyer, you ask your agent, is this flood X zone? And if they say yes, you're like, perfect. I don't need an insurance policy, right? Now, if you're going through Citizens, that will not be an option. So a lot of people may say, well, why would you go with Citizens? Well, somebody like me, I bought a home on the water that's, was built in the 80s. And there's just some companies that don't want to carry policies for those homes. And obviously it's to mitigate risk, on their end. They don't want homes flooding. They don't want to deal with any of that. So they just say, we're not covering it. And that's where Citizens steps in. So a lot of people don't have an option. But with this new move they're doing where they're going to make everybody carry a flood policy, I think it's number one, going to allow other companies to step up to the plate, private companies step up to the plate, provide coverage, because a lot of people like myself are already starting to look at other options, because I don't know the exact number as of yet, how much it's going to increase, but it's going to be, for me in particular, about $600 to $700 every year. So it's quite a big jump, especially if you're on fixed income, you're retired. It's going to be a massive jump. I did mention these have already started to roll out. Effective 2024, if your home, your coverage on your dwelling is worth more than $600,000, you already have had to have a flood policy as of 2024. 2025, any home $500,000 and more. 2026, $400,000 and more. And by 2027, everybody will need to have a flood policy. So me, like I said, I already have to have a flood policy. And I don't know, I'll tell you one thing that kind of concerns me a little bit. I'm really concerned that if citizens, you can look at this various different ways. We can look at this, one way we can look at this is look at this beautiful view. That's one way to look at it. I don't know, every time I'm shooting one of these videos, if you guys saw my last video, the waves always pick up. It's always like this. Every time I'm doing this video, the waves always pick up. I brought my rod, brought my pompano jig, but with these waves, I don't think I'm gonna catch anything. Just too many waves. But so where I was going with it is, one can say, oh, Citizen's gonna be the only one doing this. My biggest concern, and I'd love to hear your guys' opinion, my biggest concern is that every insurance company will be like, wait, if Citizens is doing this, why can't we collect more money? Why can't we make more revenue on our policies and just force everybody to have a flood policy? Now, one can argue that if everybody is forced to have a flood policies are going to go down quite significantly. And again, that's totally arguable. You can look at that quite a few ways, but that's just my take. I'm a little bit afraid that since now Citizens is doing it, other companies will be like, wait, if we can collect a little bit more money, why don't we do that? So I don't know. I don't know if I'm too confident about what's coming. And again, this is not a maybe. This is not a what if. This is not a if it gets voted in. This is happening. This has already happened. I mean, I'm a prime example. I already have a flood policy. Good news, though, and this is just my particular situation. So when I bought my home, it wasn't even an option. There was no other company that was willing to cover my home. So I had to go with Citizens. But in this mandate, if you want to call it, I talked to my insurance broker and I told her there has to be another option. So luckily there was actually two options. She looked it up and she's like, wait, Antonio, there's actually two companies we can go with now. So I think it may work to our favor. And guess what? These two other companies, I forget the name of them, but these two other companies, I did not have to have a flood policy for my home. So I was actually able to save, $700-800. And again, that's my scenario. Every scenario is going to be unique, but I guess it does show, and she was right. She had mentioned by Citizens doing this, they really want private companies to step up. And it looks like, at least for my instance, two of them have. So it's a good news for me. I if I would have stayed with them, it would have been like $600-700 more. But the fact that it's introduced two different companies to be willing to step up. I mean, Florida, the governor has been on the news, has been on social talking about it. He really wants these companies to stop playing these games and stop, leaving when storms hit. And it's just not cool. We're there making our payments for our insurances, and then a big storm hits, or, they have a significant amount of losses and they back out, right? I mean, that's just not cool. So we'll see what it does. More importantly, guys, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. I mean, this is a big topic, and it's going to affect a lot of people. I know a lot of homeowners that I've sold homes to where they had no other option. They had to go through Citizens, and Citizens at that time, without the flood policy, it was very reasonable rate. It wasn't expensive at all. So sometimes, I've had scenarios, hundreds of dollars cheaper than anything else that was out there. So Citizens has been a good option, but like I said, they're really, really trying to get less people to be with them. They're not in the business to do insurance. They're there to protect people and give people options. But the whole goal of this was not to grow it into a huge corporation. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. I don't know. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on it. I thought I was going to fish, but clearly these waves, I'm telling you, every time I bring this camera out, these waves just picked up. I came prepared, brought my whole setup, and the waves are like, not today. We are in winter. We're about a week and a half away from Christmas, believe it or not. We actually had some storms that came in a little bit, had a few droplets, but this is Florida. This is winter right now. If you're somebody up north, I know I have some clients I've been talking to up north. They were telling me they had a pretty decent storm rolling in. This is what we got to deal with here. A few clouds, beautiful sun. You can see the sun coming in and out. But that's going to be it, guys, for this video. I tried my best to cover as much. I don't know if it's a rant, if you want to call it, but I really thought if a lot of people need to know about this, especially if you're buying a home. If you're my client, you don't got to worry about it because I bring this up to you every time. But if you're somebody that's buying a home, you need to do your shopping ahead of time for insurance, because this can and will probably make or break a lot of deals. There's a lot of people that are barely qualifying for the debt to income on the loan, and adding another $700 premium because of flood policy is going to make people not qualify for the mortgage. So this is something you got to do your homework up front. You got to make sure you send it to your agent, have your agent send it to their insurance broker that they work with, or you can send it to, whoever you want, and make sure you have options and that you're not in a scenario like I was, where Citizens was your only option. And if it is, and you like the home and you're willing to carry the extra cost of the flood, no biggie, right? But it's better up front. So that's going to be it, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Comment down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you missed last video I did, be sure to check that one out. It was pretty much all social media talking about all the New Yorkers moving down here and how I pretty much debunked it, at least not moving to Sarasota. I or my circle has really seen an influx of that. But like I said, check that video out. You're going to see it up here on the corner. And that's going to be it. I'd love to hear your opinion. And thank you guys very much for watching. I'll get back to try to fish, and we'll see how we do. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care. Bye.